Welcome to Morning Joe with Tom, with your host, Thomas Chappell. Get ready to listen to real-life stories from inspiring leaders who have overcome incredible challenges to rise to the occasion. If you're ready to add some pep to your morning with a new outlook on leadership, then grab your cup of coffee. It's time to be inspired. Here's your host, Thomas Chappell.
So, Sean, thank you for coming, and welcome to Morning Joe with Tom podcast. So, Sean, you've been a prolific writer, both in articles and books. You're an amazing teacher. I think that's, everyone will admit that's your talent. And you have been like the sage whenever it comes to all things marketing in the online world. I guess to kind of kick it off really is, what brought you to serve others in this way?
Wow, that's a load there. Wow, I really appreciate that. I'm not sure I knew all of that about myself. So thank you very much, Thomas. I appreciate it. What brought me to serve? Wow. I feel like that's a deep question. I think that there's a couple of things, 2 or 3 or 4 things that kind of led me to this place. I want to give credit to our Creator first. I feel like He calls each one of us to something, and sometimes as mere humans, we have a hard time finding what that calling is. But I really believe that at elements, not necessarily every single training I've done, but certainly elements of what I've done is a result of that calling. I think that somewhere inside of me, I want to leave an imprint on this earth, not just in a spiritual way, but to help people out. I think of helping folks out economically and in their legacy. So those 2 things mean a lot to me personally. Number one, because I know what it's like to make an economic living in an online environment where things are virtual, where frankly speaking, it's a lonely world. You're working by yourself most of the time. Your family doesn't understand what you do, even if they appreciate it. They don't understand what you do. Your family doesn't understand. Your friends don't understand. So you have a trouble talking about details with your family and your friends because not because you want to hide anything, but because they just don't understand. And so that makes it difficult. It's difficult to connect with good people online. And then finally, legacy. I think about myself, and I think that God has placed something inside of us that's more than just go get a job. I think that He has placed something inside of us that's more than just spiritual, but it's that He wants us to make a stamp on this earth. The first man was tasked with naming the animals. I think that we're supposed to do something. And so, I think that for me, Thomas, in my development economically online, and then also building my legacy, I look around, and when I ask the question, how can I serve other people? I see 2 big needs. One, how can other coaches, consultants, experts, authors, teachers, speakers, how can they economically make what's happening happen? And that feels good to me. And then when we tie that together with legacy, I feel drawn to be able to do that. Does that answer your question, Thomas?
Oh, absolutely. And there's so many more questions wrapped up into that one. That's a lovely story there. So what are some of the most critical business challenges that leaders face when conducting the outreach that you help them with?
So in terms of business challenges as it comes to outreach, kind of meeting the person that you're going to help.
Yes, for the leader, for the leader's face.
From the leader's perspective. Okay. Obviously, as a leader, then it's our responsibility to lead, to move people in a certain particular direction, and then to set the frame for what that outreach is going to look like. Some of the big challenges with the outreach itself is obviously having the right people in the right place, the right people doing the right activities, but if we were to say there's three big challenges with outreach. So one big challenge with outreach is knowing exactly who we're going to outreach to. So we can talk all day about the strategies and the right emails and the right hellos, but if we're reaching out to the wrong people, we can be doing absolutely everything right, and we won't know why people aren't enrolling. So, audience selection, I think, is absolutely critical and key. I think the second thing, Thomas, that happens with outreach that's a big challenge is we believe we've identified the audience, but then we go out there and we try to interact with the audience, and we may be using a technique that works in one place, but we're using it in the wrong place. So if we're using a technique that works well with a warmed up prospect in email, but then because we don't know any better, we take that process and put it into a cold social environment, it's probably not going to work. Same thing, if we've steeped our environment or our learning process in cold activity, so we've learned how to break the ice, but then we take that cold material into a warm environment, people are going to look at us like we have two heads or we're a unicorn, because it's not going to fit. And so those are just two examples. There's probably 100 different examples of the wrong medium or the wrong message or even the wrong words to package the message up. And I think about it even in our personal life, there's many ways that we can ask someone to do something, especially if it's against their will, right? Let's just use a silly example I've used before. I want to go see a movie. I would like to take my wife. I know it's the kind of movie that she wouldn't be crazy about. Okay, short of compelling her, right? I have to make some type of an ask, and that ask can range anywhere from, I'd like to go to the movies tonight. Would you like to go? And then just hope that she says yes, and then trick her into watching the movie I want to see, right? Well, that might work today, but it won't work in the long run. And the marketing is exactly the same way. So if we trick people into opening an email or we trick people into watching a video, then it might work. They might watch the video today. They might actually buy, but now they don't trust us for the future. So another way to ask her would be to say, look, I know you're not crazy about this particular topic. The movie's out though. I'd absolutely love to watch it. Could I beg you to go with me, and we'll have the supercharged popcorn, whatever your favorite popcorn is, and I'll take you to dinner afterwards at your favorite restaurant, even though I don't want to. There's so many different ways that we can put the ask out there, and any way that we put the ask, it's going to be received in a different way. And I think that the third challenge is I'm going to go to I think this is a big challenge, and it's sort of at the end of the spectrum. So we've just talked about two things at the beginning of the spectrum. One of the things at the beginning is audience selection. The next thing at sort of the beginning is what's the message, and kind of part two of that second challenge about getting the message right is that if our message doesn't land well, we begin to second guess our audience selection. So our audience selection could be right, but if we're evaluating it incorrectly, we go back to the drawing board when we shouldn't. But if we fast forward, we get to the place where we do have some outreach occurring. So it's enough outreach for one human. It's enough outreach for me, or it's enough outreach for a trained assistant, et cetera, et cetera. So now if we want to expand our outreach, we want to try to clone ourselves or clone the other person. And a lot of times when we add somebody else into the mix, or we add software into the mix, or we add ads into the mix, the message doesn't go out exactly the same. We think it is, but all it takes is one little inflection to change the response rate. So what that means is once we get everything set, we say, okay, this is working. Now I want to duplicate it. I want to be like a factory. We've made one prototype car, but now I want to make 100. How do we make the next 100 look exactly like this one when we made this one by hand, but we're going to put the other 100 on a machine and have other people doing it? And so I think that's the third challenge, is that a lot of times as humans, as coaches, consultants, authors, speakers, we're doing the work. As soon as we pass it on, results change. They often go down. And sometimes if we're smart enough to hire somebody that's better than we are at the particular thing, we surround ourselves great leaders surround themselves with people that do things better than they do. So if instead of hiring someone that we have to train, if we're willing to hire somebody that actually does it better than us, then they can elevate our results. But I think in most cases, coaches, consultants, they make the mistake of trying to train that second position, and scalability is really hard.
Wow, Sean, that's a lot. You just said a whole lot there. I think I have a follow-up question with that, because I know that you have a framework that you use. And one of the things I think all of our friends and myself enjoy about that framework is that you're tool agnostic completely on this kind of stuff. So from that, it makes it easier for people to kind of come in and engage with you for that framework. What should someone coming in new to you, what should they expect from that framework, and from both the introductory point to the end state result in your mind?
I'm not sure I understand. I'm not sure I exactly understand the question. I feel like it's super duper broad. So what should they expect? Maybe I have to ask in terms of what?
So from the expectation that whenever they come in, are you into your framework? They're not everybody comes in at a different level.
Mm-hmm.
What should they, so coming in at that, how do you adjust for that type of?
How do I adjust?
Well, how do you help them adjust?
Help them adjust. Okay. So this really gets very tricky, because regardless of the steps in the framework, and there's a lot of steps in the framework depending on where people are coming in at. Okay. And so what that means is if we relate this to, say, grade school, there's 12 different levels in grade school. All right. But at the same time as there's 12 different levels in grade school, there's many, many professions that people want to get into. So some people want to be doctors and lawyers, and other people want to be plumbers and HVAC, and other people want to be mechanics. Other people want to do paperwork. Other people want to do accounting and numbers. Other people want to teach, et cetera, et cetera. So even if we go back and we look at grade school preparation, so one of the challenges that we have, and we can point fingers all over the place at who's responsible for, why children don't often come out of 12th grade ready to become a doctor, ready to become a mathematician. The truth of the matter is there's so many options out there that you can't possibly train someone even in 12 years to be able to do every single one of those particular things well. And so what happens is we've got multiple entry points, call it 12 entry points, but let's face it, not only do we have 12 grades of entry points, we have learning styles. So some humans are very linear thinkers. Some humans are holistic thinkers. Some people are literal thinkers. Some people are visual thinkers. There's all kinds of different models out there that try to explain that. And regardless of whether we like one or the other, the bottom line is that as humans, we work and we think in different ways. And so not only is the education in school separated by grade level, which is perhaps easy to do, it also theoretically should be separated by the literal students are able to learn things literally, and the graphical students, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's very, very difficult to do, especially with one teacher. So if we relate that to what I do, we've got people with so many different backgrounds coming in and so many different expectations that I like to have laid the framework and say, and like you said earlier, I'm very tool agnostic. There's a lot of things I'm agnostic to, a lot of things in the concept. And I think that differs me from a lot of folks in my space, because a lot of times folks in my space say, if you work with me, use this tool, use this type of marketing, you do this, this, and this, which is, on one hand, it's great. It's like going to technical school to learn plumbing. But when you come out the other end, the only thing you're doing is plumbing. So my approach is different. I want to be able to take coaches, consultants, authors, speakers that are at any place here. I don't want to have to discriminate or exclude because you're a literal thinker, or because you're a graphical thinker, or because you use a tool that I don't use. So we take that, we try to make this explanation in different words, then introduce them to a framework that says, if you do these types of things, you're going to be able to get into a direction. You're going to be able to choose. Do you want to become a doctor, lawyer, plumber, artist, or teacher? Right. And so then my job from kind of a higher level perspective is, as I'm interacting with folks, is to help them find their way. Right. Are you the type of person that needs a really easy website builder, and you're willing to accept the fact that its performance is going to be subpar? Or are you the type of person that's just really good with drag and drop, and you can really visualize colors, so we can put you in like a racehorse of software that is going to do things that are going to be very, very cool, but they require a specific set of skills? Okay. Or if somebody is saying, you know, I want to go out and I want to get known in the world. There's so many different ways to do that. We can use video, we can use audio podcasts, we can use interviews, we can do workshops, we can do speaking engagements, we can do writing, we can do all kinds of different things. So somebody comes to me, you know, rather than me saying, look, video like this is the perfect way to do marketing, or audio podcasts are the perfect way, or writing articles is a perfect way. I feel like my job is to say, look, what's your creative DNA? Do you want to write? Do you want to do audio? Do you want to do video? So now that you know that, here's the framework for being able to do that, craft that, and then hopefully I shepherd you to the end result. So what happens is, because it's not cookie cutter, there's pros and cons. So the big disadvantage to cookie cutter is that it's not, you know, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C up to J. Everybody's going to come out and be a plumber, so to speak. The flip side is, and it makes it more difficult to shepherd folks through when we can't just say, okay, go to, you know, grade 4 and, you know, book 4, grade 4, book 4. Instead, we're going to someone and saying, look, we need to place you here for this, here for this, here for that. You have to take some responsibility for your self-education, for knowing where you want to go. And then it really allows me to step into a place that I love, and that's being able to be more of a higher level strategist. So instead of having to teach someone to use software over and over and over again, when there's a tutorial out there that does it probably better than I ever could, I'm able to be kind of the big picture person that says, hey, where are you? How do you think? How do you want to present? And where do you want to go? Let me help you draw a roadmap to get there. But then once you have that roadmap, you're going to have to figure out where the fuel stops are. You're going to have to decide if you want to stop for fast food or a nice restaurant. Are you going to stay at a fancy hotel every single night? Or are you going to get a hostel? Or you're going to sleep in a tent along the way to your destination? You get to make all of those choices. Does that answer your question,
Yeah,
Thomas?
that answers it. I mean, that's the kind of sage conversation I was expecting. So, Sean, you know, we've got just a couple of minutes here, but I want to give you a chance to, you know, how could someone reach out to you for more information? What's the best way?
So if somebody wanted to start learning some frameworks and, you know, begin, you know, get involved with a coaching community or an expert community, or get involved with training so that they could do the things that we've talked about just now, I believe they'd go to evergreenscale.com, and that would start their journey. So there should be quite a bit of free training there for somebody to kind of dip their toes in. And then when they're ready to take action and get help, that might look like coaching or purchasing a course or getting involved in a network, et cetera, which should all be available through evergreenscale.com. Hey, thanks for asking.
Yeah, Sean. Hey, I appreciate that. And for all the listeners, we will be putting a link in the show notes for you. So please take advantage of it. that you will love the training, I can tell you. So Sean, thank you. And we appreciate your time and look forward to seeing and speaking with you again.
Well, cool. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun. And I get asked questions in this environment that I don't normally put in my lessons because frankly, I don't think to put these types of things in the lesson. So when we get to go deeper like this, it's actually a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Morning Joe with Tom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. See you next time for more real life stories and inspiration on Morning Joe with Tom.